Hello. So I've been studying religion for a while. I used to study more Christianity and Islam and Judaism. And, I bought into a lot of the assumptions, a lot of the myths and a lot of the lies and nonsense about religion based on that. Based like modern people, they tend to, like modern Christians, modern secularists, they tend to see religion as a moral code, the stories that are the basis of a moral code. And that's what, like society adheres to, and it's the basis for the mores of society. And so I think that element has been part of religion somewhat, but to a large extent, not. I mean, there's a lot of times in ancient religion where morality doesn't enter into it. And indeed, I would say much and perhaps most of the Bible, at least the Old Testament, is not about morality. It's what I guess people try to distinguish kind of between mythology and religion, and I think that's partly because they don't understand the nature of ancient religion, and that because mythology, they acknowledge, like, is not really necessarily about morals. It's often just these kind of weird stories about all kinds of stuff, these kind of histories that seem very fanciful. And but I think a lot of it is about cosmology. It's about planets, stars, constellations, land masses, etc. And so they'll throw in little, like, explanations for stuff, like, the world was flooded because the god was mad or something. Like, they'll add some little thing in it to kind of make it more like humanoid or something. But at the end of the day, it's basically just, I mean, that's just a thing they add on to everything. So they're like, why is this like this? And then they'll give, but it's like, obviously, if you're familiar with that stuff, that's just, like, I doubt most people took it literally. Like, they understood, like, this is just like a thing you say, like, oh yeah, the reason for this is because of that, and the reason for rain is because of this. And like, like, there were some parts of it that were kind of more straightforward, but a lot of it was just just cosmology, just explanations of science. And then they would just add these little touches to kind of make it more personable or something. So, like, the same in Nordic mythology, it says, oh, and the reason there's this hill here is because Thor one time, and he banged his hammer because he was mad about something. So it's the same thing. But, like, maybe the children, like the youngest children, took it literally, but I think, like, adults knew, like, that's what mythology is. It's descriptions of natural history mostly, and then you just kind of turn it into, like, humanoid scenarios to make it funner and more memorable. But yeah, modern people really take it seriously. Like, they really think, like, that was the real basis of, like, ancient morality. Like, the gods, that the gods were the arbiters of morals and everything. I mean, there are instances in ancient times where the gods play that role, but arguably just as often they play the role of basically amoral or immoral kind of demiurge or just tricksters, or like Loki, right? Loki is the trickster. But even Thor, like Thor is totally nuts, and he's basically the one who flooded the world, like, or Enlil, Enlil is his counterpart in the Sumerian tradition. And Enlil is not like the arbiter of morality. He's just like a really, vain, emotional god, just like Thor. It's just shows what happens when you have a symbolic language and then people lose the knowledge of what it actually means, and then how dangerous it is for the religionists and then also their critics, who many of whom both think that this was meant to be literal. I mean, it would be like, imagine every metaphor that we use, and imagine if in the future people didn't know what metaphors were, so they just, anytime you said like something metaphorical, people, was just taken literally. That's what modern people do to the religions. And it's not just because modern people are stupid. I mean, that might be part of it, but I think a lot of it is just because modern people are brainwashed. And it seems like there was a concerted effort to kind of erase the knowledge of the ancient religion. And so, like, in some ways, Christianity is seen, and maybe Judaism is seen, as like a departure from this kind of cosmological mythology, but clearly it's not much of a departure from it, since it's using a lot of the exact same stories, just changing a couple of the names and stuff. Like the flood story is the same as the Sumerian pagan flood story of Enlil, flooding Sumer, flooding Shuruppak, flooding Uruk, and Ziusudra building a ark, or Atrahasis, or etc. So like, it's the same religion. It's just a branch, just the same way like like Lutherans are a branch of Christianity. Christianity is a branch of paganism. Like, I mean, they can say like, well, it's fundamentally different, but that's what it came from, and it retained so many of the fundamental elements of it. So it's very much a branch of paganism. And so, but the question is like, how different is it? Like, are Judaism and Christianity and Islam like totally distinct from paganism? Or like, I think there's a lot of people have said that Christianity is based on sun worship or solar cosmology, and that Jesus is the sun, and that like the 12 apostles or the 12 disciples, or both, are like the signs of the zodiac. So that's possible. Certainly the story of him going to dying and going to the underworld, going to Hades, and for 3 days and 3 nights, and then returning, and then bringing the dead alive with him. They say like there were sightings of the dead walking and whatever. That's like the same story as Inanna, and maybe other or even earlier stories like Inanna and the Netherworld. Like she goes to the underworld for to, she's trying to rescue her sister, or she's trying to visit her sister or something. So she goes down to the underworld, which is America, and but she's killed by the underworld gods, and she's yeah, I think she's dead for 3 days and 3 nights, or 3 day, at least like 3 days, or I think it's 3 days and 3 nights. And so, you know, that's the same type of story as the Jesus story. And then when she comes back from the underworld, she brings some of the dead with her. So that's the same as the Jesus story too. So that part, you know, and also there may be other traditions that are the same, like about like Osiris, and maybe the Sokar festival may have been 3 days and 3 nights. So I'm not sure about that, but you know, I saw this thing. I'm not sure where. I think maybe, can't remember where I saw this, but okay, it's names and functions of the 7 archangels. So, and I'm not sure if the archangels are in Judaism, or if these are, or if this is a Christian development. Not that well versed, but names and functions of the 7 archangels. And these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels who is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Sarakiel, one of the holy angels who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. Ramiel, one of the holy angels whom God set over those who rise. So I think, like, this reads to me at least as cosmology, you know, like is as similar to the descriptions of the Hindu Devas and Asuras. You know, like the Asuras are the ones who are over Tartarus, over Patala, Naraka, the underworld, and the Devas are over the world. And so, I mean, it's a bit confusing what all these things mean. I mean, the first one, it says over the world and over Tartarus. So that might signify, like, I believe these are planets. These are the 7 visible planets, and that Uriel is one that kind of goes between, you know, the underworld and the world. It's basically goes partially visible in Afro-Eurasia and then partially visible in America. And, you know, this is similar to the descriptions like in the Surya Siddhanta of the, which is a Hindu, you know, astronomical textbook, which describes the Asuras and the Devas, or, you know, like the planets which are with the Asuras and the planets which are with the Devas over the underworld, or, you know, with the Devas over the world and the Asuras over the underworld. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly which, like, if I'm correct in this, I'm not sure exactly which planet is which. I would guess Uriel might be Mercury or Saturn, or it could be Mars. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But so it seems that there was a time when they just started like turning gods into angels, and for some reason they thought it was better to only worship one god, but then just turn all the other gods into angels. To me, that's semantics. Like if it's a divine being, it's a divine being. Like I'm not really sure the point of changing it, but let's see. So also in the Islamic tradition, the central kind of ritual is the circling of Mecca, and the pilgrimage to Mecca, which includes like people lined up circling around the Kaaba, and the black shrine with the holy stone in it, which may be like a meteorite. So anyway, that seems to be the same basic ritual as the Sokar festival in Egypt, which was once a year when they would circle around the holy city of Osiris, maybe Abydos or something, and they would ceremonially circle around the walls and then maybe circle around the temple. And so I think this is cosmological. It's like planets circling, and it's like an orbit. So I have yet to look more into that and find all the specific parallels, but I think there probably are going to be more parallels in that. So again, it's like modern monotheism is not necessarily that removed. It's just semantically removed. Like instead of the planets being all gods, they're just all relegated to like angels, and then the main god is either like one of their number or maybe just some abstract concept. There's one there's something about here, Yahweh, Jupiter of the hosts. So that might be I'm not sure if that's from a Roman source or who referred to him that way, but it's like an old term. So so maybe Yahweh represented one of the planets, Jupiter. I mean, that would make sense in terms of the flood, since it was Jupiter that flooded the world. And Jupiter slash Thor slash Seth slash Enlil slash Marduk, and might be possibly Tlaloc Chalk of the Mesoamerican tradition. So yeah, that I'm not totally sure, and it could be that even Yahweh takes on different roles of different planets or stars or constellations, etc. So it's funny. I find it so funny when like monotheists talk about how like believing in God is just a natural thing. Like you just naturally believe that there's a creator. But meanwhile, like in ancient paganism, there tended not to be a belief in like one creator. Like the idea of one creator, one God, if that was natural, like all these people claim it is, why did nobody ever do it? Why were they all polytheists up until like now? It's a lot of the like explanations for how religion came about are just so half-assed and stupid. Another thing I found out here, my friend Brian George was sent me something. Weird question. What do you know? Oh yeah, the Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud. They move with the precession of the equinox, and oddly enough, Jupiter protects us from them. Is it true that Jupiter protects Earth? So what I think is that, Jupiter is the storm god, and he's the god of gods, like the king of the gods. He's Zeus, Thor, etc. And Baal, and Jupiter is the largest planet. So when they say he's the most powerful planet, that could be what that means. Basically, they use they call him the strongest of the gods. Could be because he's the largest planet, and he's associated with storms. And that could be it could be because it's like basically a gas planet. Like it's basically a moving storm. Like, but also an important role that Jupiter plays. Seth, I think people have associated him with Mercury or something, but I don't really buy that. I think Thoth is Mercury, like that, which is what the Greeks believed, and they ran Egypt for like 1,000 years or something, so they probably knew. And so like I think it's Jupiter, because like all these other storm gods are confirmed as Jupiter, and since I haven't seen enough like real evidence to show that Seth is not Jupiter or that Seth is Mercury, and again there's like reason to believe that Thoth is Mercury, I'm pretty much assuming there's strong probability that Seth is Jupiter. And he plays the same role as Thor, who is Jupiter. Like Thursday is Thor's day, which is Jueves in Latin, which means like basically Jupiter. Jove is another name for Jupiter. And both Thor and Seth protect, or they battle against the Midgard serpent, who is a serpent that lies waiting, hiding kind of in the ocean whenever the gods are like crossing the ocean, and it tries to attack them and stuff. At least in the Egyptian tradition, he's called Apep or Apophis. But certainly in both traditions, he's like out there in the ocean, and he's basically attacked by the storm god, or the storm god kind of does battle against him. And so I was thinking that Apophis was simply a metaphor for something to explain why the sun, like the sunset, and why the sun turns red when it sets in the Western Ocean. So it could be that, but this opens up the possibility that Apep and the Midgard serpent they are actually the Kuiper belt and or the Oort cloud, which are basically, I think, a bunch of asteroids and stuff at the periphery of our solar system, which Jupiter protects the solar system from. So when Seth is at the prow of the solar bark, the solar boat of Ra, which is also inhabited by the other sun folk, or the the other gods of Ra, which are like Isis and Nephthys, who seem to be Venus rising, Venus setting, and but Seth stands at the prow of the boat, at the front of the boat, with a spear, and he spears Apophis, so that the solar bark can pass, and so the sun god Ra or Re can pass. And so that would be in some ways an accurate description of the way that Jupiter protects the solar system from the Kuiper belt. I mean, I'm not really sure about the Oort clouds. Certainly the Kuiper belt, if it's from the sound of it, I mean, I should find out more, but from the sound of it, it sounds like something that could have the shape of a serpent, more or less. And so that would maybe be the best candidate for Apep and the Midgard serpent. And Thor battles the Midgard serpent. I think he's done it in the past, and he's also going to do it during Ragnarok, which is the kind of great battle, and like kind of the end of the universe as it is now, and the change into like something else, or like which seems to refer to the point in time when the stars and planets shift and they have to be reoriented, so there's maybe a new pole star. I think it refers to that the planets were, in some traditions, like they were working iniquity because they were not rising at their appointed time. So it's basically the precession of the equinox and the stuff like that. So that certainly makes sense for how Jupiter, how Seth and Thor got that role as the champions to battle Apep, or the Midgard serpent. Let's see if I got anything else here to talk about. I mean, I was reading something, a Greek, or yeah, I guess it was Greek, and it was talking about Socrates. Was somebody addressing Socrates and calling him a demigod and a killer of the gods and a bringer of knowledge. So I think this has to do with the way that the gods were kind of like, the knowledge of the gods were kind of like covered up, and now we just get this science without that. And I don't know, or somehow has to do with some of the shifts maybe in religion, which seem to have been like Zoroastrianism did this, where they turned all the gods into just angels. They might have been one of the first to do that, like Zoroaster, Zarathustra in Iran, which is basically Hinduism, but they just turned all the gods into angels except for Ahura Mazda, who's like the god, and then Anguri Rahman or something, which is the devil or the bad deity. And then Buddhism did that. Buddhism is still retained all the pagan gods. It just turned them all into like bodhisattva angel type characters. Then Judaism did it, Christianity did it, Islam did it. So it's interesting. It talks about the killing of the gods, and it talks about Medes killing its children. So I'm not sure. Medes was like the Persian Empire, And so that was where that might be a reference to Zoroastrianism. It could be that Zarathustra really started this trend. All right, well, I think it's cutting me off, but I'll leave it at that anyway. Take care.